Hey, welcome to the Empowered and Free podcast. My name is Erin and I'm a counselor, certified life coach, breathwork coach, and small town mom of two. I know firsthand what it feels like to live with high functioning anxiety. For most of my life, I had so much mental mess, anxiety, people pleasing, perfectionism, overthinking, constant worrying, and never feeling good enough. On my decade-long journey to feeling better, I've learned how to take back my life from high-functioning anxiety and helped others to do the same through my coaching and breathwork programs. Now I want to share everything I know with you. This podcast will help you feel empowered over your high-functioning anxiety and free to finally live the life of your dreams. Now, grab a cup of coffee, get comfy, and dive into the episode. I'm Erin Kimbrell, and this is the Empowered and Free podcast. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Empowered and Free podcast. I am so excited for you guys to meet today's guest, Elizabeth Soto-Baez. Elizabeth is a transformational and mastery certified women's empowerment coach. She works with divorced women in their 30s and 40s who have lost their identity, self-worth, and passion for life. After losing herself in a 13-year marriage, numbing out, and moving through life as a robot, Elizabeth now desires to draw women back to themselves. She works alongside women, helping them build the lines of communication within, igniting self-love so they can show up in the world empowered, pursuing their passions. Elizabeth created Launch Your Life Coaching as a community for women to safely shed societal and cultural expectations and reclaim their intuition and personal power. Yes, you go, girl. In addition to being a mom to two beautiful boys, she loves to sing and play guitar, and she has built meditation and breathwork practices as a way to stay grounded and present in her life. She enjoys keeping active through yoga, weight training, and running. No longer lost or on autopilot, Elizabeth works to make conscious decisions about how she shows up in the world, honoring herself first in order to love and serve others well. Oh, your bio just brings me to life. I love that so much. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Erin. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to hang out with you today.
Of course, I just had to. We've connected before. We're just on the same lines, running parallel in so many ways. So I had to have you on. I'm so glad you're here today. So I would love for you to just open up and tell us a little bit about your story and how you got on this journey.
Sure. So kind of like how my bio says, I was married for 13 and a half years. I got married pretty young. Um, as I reflect on it now and continue to do like my personal work journey and healing, I think, oh, I didn't really know who I was when I got married, so it is
Mm-hmm.
not a surprise that I kind of lost any grips on who I thought I could be or who I was when I got married. And so I melded really nicely and
Yeah.
became whoever my former husband needed or wanted or demanded that I be.
Mm-hmm.
And I numbed out. I completely numbed
Yeah.
out. I was not allowed to have feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget, I don't know how many years I had been married at this point, but I remember seeing a quote on social media that said, feelings buried alive don't die. And I thought,
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, that's what's happening to me.
Yeah.
And I didn't do anything with that information, but it resonated so deeply because I knew that I was daily bearing feelings. And so joy and happiness and excitement and pain, none of those feelings were alive in me because I couldn't. You can't, and I've learned on this journey, you can't just bury pain and then hope to experience joy and happiness and excitement and
Mm-hmm.
fun. You bury one feeling, they all get buried.
Yeah.
And I met a guy that I dated in high school, and
Mm-hmm.
he like we reconnected after 20 years, and he, talking about what life was like in high school. It had been 20 years since we were in high school, and so you kind of do a little reminiscing, and he started saying things about how I showed up as a human in high school, and I was like, oh my God, that's how I was. That is not how I am now.
Mm.
And I had both excitement and like withdrawal. Like, wow, what happened to me? For the last 13 and a half years, I have not been anything remotely close to that, 16 and 17-year-old girl when you don't know who you are, but somehow you still show up as who you are, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got divorced, and through that healing process, I came across coaching, and I thought, this has been the most powerful journey that I have ever been on. And healing is 100% within grasp.
Yeah.
And I had women call me after the divorce was announced and the separation, secretly call me and say, "How did you do it? I think that I need to, but I'm so scared. And I just need to know, like, how did you find the courage to do that?" And I realized so many women are ashamed of their challenging marriages, and
Mm-hmm.
they're afraid to speak the truth about how hard marriage is. And we all know marriage is hard. It just is. It's hard to
Yeah.
show up as your best self every day to somebody that sees you in your ups and downs. But it shouldn't be hard all the time, in and out every day. There should be moments of joy, and there should be moments of connection. And um, myself and these women, we're struggling to find those things. And so I realized this needs to, like, I can't hide this thing that I found, and just
Yeah.
keep it to myself. Like, women need this. The women that called me and the women that I don't know yet that I will meet in this journey need to know that healing and hope and light and joy and fun and excitement are 100% available. You don't have to continue to live in the pit.
Yeah.
And that has really propelled me to show up in these spaces and be like, yeah, it sucked. And also, I'm living my very best life right now. And I can say that with full truth, with full authenticity. Like, I'm living my best life today.
That just that hits so true for me. I can feel that through you. And just to imagine you hearing you now and talking to the person I've been talking to, and to imagine you as the person that you were showing up as before, they do seem like two completely different people. And I think that's why this empowerment just message keeps coming through you over and over and over. Oh, it's so good. And I think one thing that really stuck out to me, a few things did, but one thing in particular was, we a lot of times go through these struggles and we think, how will I ever get out of this? How will I ever feel better? And we find the solution and we make our way out. And then all we want to do is reach out our hand and pull other people out of the pit, and help
Yes.
them out. And I
There's,
just, go ahead.
sorry, there is this human condition, this human belief that we all experience and is an absolute lie. And it is
Yeah.
that we are the only one experiencing what we are experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
And it is an absolute lie in every single instance. There is not one single thing that any of us suffer or are challenged by that someone else in the world is not struggling with. It's just not real. But
Right.
we convince ourselves, I'm the only one. No one is going to get it or understand. And that just isn't true. And so overcoming this and then speaking out and saying, yeah, this was a bad time of my life. I see you. It doesn't have to stay that way for you. It didn't stay that way for me. And it is very cool to be able to pull other women, in my case, other women out of the pit, because you don't have to you don't have to stay. I mean, you could choose to stay there, like, it's
Mm-hmm.
always a choice, but you don't absolutely have to continue to live in those spaces if you really want to be free.
That's so beautiful. And you're right. It is a choice. And all we're doing in different ways is offering out the hand, offering out the solution, offering, you can come with me if you want, if you're ready to feel better. And another thing that stuck out to me, as I was going through the program to become my schooling to become a counselor, one of my professors said this quote of, you can only take people as deep as you've been yourself. And I just feel like that rings so true for both of us in different ways. But we understand the depth of what that feels like, and to then hopefully be able to help people, and people saying, you're in my head, all those women messaging you, how did you do it? Please help me. It's just a beautiful thing. So even though it was awful and horrible, I think both of us can look back and say it was worth it. It was the path for our life.
I can actually, yes, there are, I've had conversations about this recently. Like, man,
Oh,
why
okay.
did I do that? What was I thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Just chatting with someone very recently about my proposal and like what my intuition said, that I didn't listen to because we are all conditioned to not listen to our
Mm-hmm.
gut wisdom. We are told that we should and we have to do all these things. And reflecting, I'm like, wow, I 100% knew that getting married at that time was just not going to be serving of my heart and my soul and my joy. But also now I can look back and say, this thing that I experienced has created the beauty of my life now. I also have two beautiful boys that I would never give back for anything. And so I have made peace with that decision, and I've forgiven that version of myself for not listening to her intuition and not leaning into what she knew was true because she felt pressured by what society would think or what her family would think, and just said, you did what you knew best to do in that time of your life,
Mm-hmm.
and today you know better. And so you
That's
get to do
right.
better. Like Maya Angelou tells us, when you know better, you do better. And today I do. Um, and so I use all of that to continue to fuel my desire and passion and movement to empower other women to not feel also like, well, I did this horrible thing. And then you live in that resentment and bitterness world. Like, why did I do that to myself? And you stay stuck spiraling in the past.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to do that either. We don't have to do that. You can forgive yourself. You can move on. You can I tell all my clients, gather up your lessons
Mm-hmm.
and turn them into your gifts and your victories and move forward. And that's a
Yeah.
choice that we all have. And so doing that daily, for sure.
I, as you were speaking, self-forgiveness, forgive yourself is what I just kept feeling through your words. And it is key, no matter what we're struggling with, because so many of us are critical of ourselves. We're so hard on ourselves, right? And I think that applies no matter what you're going through, in your life. Another theme I heard you talk about that I want to bring to the light here is people pleasing in a way, is what you've mentioned, right? Doing everything for others, maybe for your husband at the time, for other people. How are they going to respond if I decide to go through this? Can we talk about that a little bit? How did that show up for you? That's a big thing we talk about here on the podcast. So how did people pleasing show up for you in that situation?
So I never identified as a people pleaser. And
Mm-hmm.
um, there were definitely decisions in my life that I made intentionally not to people please. So I could look back and say I wasn't a traditional people pleaser in the great sense of it. However, there were absolutely things that I was like, I have to do this like this because if I don't, then my community, my religious community, my
Mm-hmm.
neighbors, like people in my bubble, are gonna wonder. They're gonna say, "What? That's weird. Why are you doing that?" Or my mom is gonna ask questions, and I don't want to answer any of those questions.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of just lived in this like, I just have to. And that is something that I talk a lot in my coaching practice and with my clients. Like, man, we live in this space where all the have tos and the shoulds. Like, oh, I
Yes.
really should do this, or,
Mm-hmm.
but Liz, I just have to do that. And I didn't have someone in my life to be like, wait, but do you really have to? Like, really, really?
Mm-hmm.
And so I did things because I felt like I had to do them, not because I hoped to be loved by people. So people pleasing generally stems from like, I just want to be loved and accepted. So I do things to
Yes.
accommodate people. That wasn't my motive or my energy. It was more like, I'm stuck in this cultural circle, this bubble. And so this is what everybody's doing. And I don't really care if people like me, but I sort of just feel pressure to show up and do these things. And that was actually like an argument that I had a lot with my ex spouse. Like, it mattered to him a lot what people thought about him. And
Hmm.
I didn't care. So there were
Yeah.
a lot of times where I was like, I don't care what people think about this. I'm just going to do what I do. But of course, like, I was still married. So I still wanted to do things like a wife, and I wanted to be the best wife, and I wanted to be the best version of me. And I didn't realize that I was being like shriveled up by all these wife expectations.
Yeah.
Um, it was it was an interesting paradigm to be like, I'm not really a people pleaser and I don't care what people think. Also, like, crap, I'm a wife and I'm a mom and I still have to do certain things that I don't want to do, but have to do them.
Yeah. I can think of so many women that just based on what you just said are going to be helped by listening to this and
Mm.
listening to that conversation. And I don't know, I can just feel that transformation already. So I'm so glad that you
So
that you
good. I mean,
shared that.
anything that I can share from my story that will be like a
Mhm.
nugget of hope and excitement and curiosity and confidence for women who are feeling like they're stuck in this spiral, in this suffering circle. That's what I'm about. That's what my like life's mission is now, to use whatever pain I had as a stepping stone for the women that I come into contact with.
Oh, so good. Well, I know that you mentioned that you didn't kind of fall into that label of people pleaser. And I think you feel the same way about anxiety, just from previous conversations we've had. What was your experience with anxiety at the time?
So I can look back now and say, oh my gosh, I was having anxiety all the time.
Of course.
But when I was living in that space, I was just, the story was, you have to be better. What can you do to be better? You have to read a book. You have to go to a retreat. You have to, how much prayer, how much praying can you do to be better? I was part of a religious community at that time. And I was like having so much trouble breathing. And I wasn't sick. I didn't have a cold. Like, I just couldn't take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Um, and it got so bad that I went to see a cardiologist. And this was so early in my marriage. I don't think I had kids yet. And my oldest is 13 now. So it was a long time ago that I was already like in that space where I'm like, my marriage is just not good. And
Hmm.
so I went to see the cardiologist because I was like, you know what? I don't know what's happening to my body. I cannot breathe. I just can't catch my breath. They did like a echocardiogram, I guess. They like took a picture of my
Yeah.
heart. They're like, your heart is like textbook amazing.
Hmm.
Like, I'm like, okay, then what's wrong with me? Why can't I breathe? And my lungs, everything was good. Everything checked out at the doctor. They gave me no answers. I left and I got all my test results and I didn't have answers for years. Years and years went by and I was just like, this is just what I'm like. This is just how I am. Sometimes I just can't breathe and that's it. And I got out. It was, Erin, it was the wildest thing. I told my former husband, um, I just can't be married anymore. Took a lot of courage to. That's a very
Yeah.
hard thing to do. I see you women who are like, oh, I need to do that, Liz. It was hard to do. Fear is very big in that space. Except after I did it, it was the wildest thing. I was able to get up from that conversation and take my first deep breath in 13 years.
Oh my
I have
gosh.
not. And when I told my story at like immediately following that, and women would come find me and people were like, what the hell, what are you talking about? And I'm like, it was the first time I was able to literally breathe, because the anxiety was like an elephant on my chest forever.
Mm.
And being able to take a literal and also like that figurative deep breath was so freeing. Um, and I tell people now, like, I can breathe now. I can breathe and I can take a full deep breath. And, we connected because of my breath work training.
Yes. Yes.
So it's like, not only was I not able to breathe, I suffered from that anxiety that whole time. I caught my breath, I found freedom, and now I'm being trained to be a facilitator to help other women to catch their breath, to be able to take that deep breath and use their breath to heal. Um, so if you're, the women that I've talked to, like maybe you're having anxiety, but you don't know what that feels like in your body because you have to turn your feelings off. You're
Mm-hmm.
not allowed to feel, and I wasn't allowed. So I didn't know that my body's sensations were anxiety. And so when I work with women now, it's like, what does your body feel like? Like, what sensations come up for you? It's really hard. They don't know.
Yes.
It's so hard to know what your body feels like when you've been programmed for years and years and years not to listen or feel.
Yes, I was in the same boat. And so I'm like, yes, 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 because I know exactly that moment that you're talking about, learning to just actually take a moment instead of worrying about everybody else, thinking about everybody else, allowing yourself to open up for that moment and just feel what was there. And there's usually a lot there, right? It could be very overwhelming. But to realize now, for you looking back, to see that your body was like whispering at first and then screaming and shouting at you that this doesn't feel right. Something's really wrong with this. But in the moment, so many of us, like you said, don't know. We don't know that, number one, that's not how we should be feeling. The number two, that doesn't have to be our constant forever. I'm so grateful that you took that step and then took a literal, just that breath, that sigh of relief, that you didn't have to go back anymore and be in that situation that your body was clearly telling you was not the right choice.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that I'm like, Erin, just like drop the mic right there because I'm like, yes, didn't know I was suffering in that space. I finally could, and then I look back and I'm like, oh my God, that's what was happening to me that whole entire time. And um, yeah, it's a wild ride.
It is. It's a wild ride. It's a journey. It's so many things. It's a transformation, like I've said. How would you describe the connection between divorce and anxiety? How do they impact one another? For you, you can share your personal experience of why you maybe felt that anxiety, or just sharing some experience from your clients.
Sure. So, for me, and then there's been a lot of overlap with my clients as well with this. It's the sensations vary, but the overlying feeling is fear and anxiety. Like, I have to walk on eggshells. I have to be careful what I'm saying. I have to filter everything. For me, it was I can't breathe. My heart palpitates. I had chronic neck and shoulder tension all the time. And it was because when I came home, I didn't have rest. When you go home to your partner, to your family, yes, it can be chaotic. I see you, moms. I know, Erin, you get home
Yes.
and it's not always like, rainbows and unicorns. But when I came home, I had to gear up for another battle. So you go to work and you deal with junk there and you kind of just know because it's work. And then I had to reset in my drive to gear up to go into another battle, put my armor on. And so I was living in this anxious space because I never knew what to expect when I got home. I didn't know what environment it was going to be like. And so I had to just have my armor on all the time, have my
Mhm.
shield, and not talk, not engage because the anxiety of setting off anything in the house was so heavy on me that I just, like I said in my bio, like I was just a robot. Okay, get home, homework, dinner, bedtime routine, bed. Every day it was exactly like that. And the routine didn't keep me from feeling anxious, but the predictability of it helped me to not be a crazy person.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, I know that I can go and cook dinner and clean up and put my two little kids, because they were very little at the time, put my two little boys to bed, and then me go to bed right away. And after that, like whatever time it was, it didn't matter. It was 8 o'clock or 8:30. Like they went to bed, I went to bed because I did not have the emotional bandwidth to stay awake with just my partner. It was so hard. Now, it wasn't always like that, but towards the end, it was like, oh no, I can't manage. It was like bearing all my feelings, but they wanted to explode out. They
Yeah.
wanted to erupt like a volcano. And the only way to keep them from erupting was to be a robot and then go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're working through a bad marriage and divorce, the anxiety is, I don't want to set anything off. And then the next thing is, what are people thinking? And I didn't necessarily struggle with that a lot,
Mm-hmm.
because once I discovered my freedom, it was like a light switch. And I was like, you can say whatever you want to say, but you didn't get married to the person I was married to, and you didn't live in my house. And that was something that I had to say to a lot of the people that were questioning me. And I also said that to the women that call me, who were like, I think I might need to do this too. It's like,
Yeah.
you're the only one who knows what it's like to live with your spouse in your house. You have to make decisions, and it doesn't matter what other people say or do, because they're not there. They don't
Yeah.
see, they don't know how you feel or what it's like to be in your place. So that anxiety shows up as the people pleasing, like you mentioned. And a lot of my clients had that. A lot of my clients were like, but what about? And I'm like, it doesn't matter. What about you? How are you going to be okay for you? How are you going to be okay for your kids? And that was the other thing that really propelled me. Like, I'm not okay for my sons. What kind of mom am I being for my sons? An anxious, can't breathe, always tired, no feelings at all human. Like, I'm just keeping them alive. Good job.
Yeah.
Literally, like they're clean and they're fed and they have clothes on. We're winning. And it
Mm-hmm.
felt so sad to think of, like, that's not a way to thrive in life. Like, that's not how my sons should be developing. So yeah, does that answer your question about how anxiety shows up?
Oh my gosh, yes. I had chills, like, and what felt like they could be tears just again, thinking of the women in my circle who need to hear you say that, who need to hear you say, it doesn't matter what other people think. They're not in your house. They're not in your situation. You
I
know?
still have to say that to people. Like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you're the only one who knows what it was really like. You're the only one who's experiencing your experience.
Yeah.
And I did have some people come to me after the separation was happening, asking a lot of questions. And I know there's a lot of overlap. So I want to be careful. Like, if you're listening to this, recognize that there's overlap, but there are also some stark differences. When people came to see me, they were like, but what about therapy? And I was like, been there, done that.
Mm-hmm.
Tried that. He didn't want to go to therapy
Yes.
for a really long, like a decade. He actually
Yeah.
didn't want to go to therapy until I was like, so I can't be married to you anymore. And then he was like, ooh, we should go to therapy. And I'm like, ooh, too little, too late, my friend. But I
Yeah.
did have people come and say that to me, and also like, wow, but like he's like this at work, and he does this, and it's been so great, and oh my gosh. And I'm like, whoever you're talking about right now, that's not the guy that lives here.
Mm-hmm.
And they could not wrap their heads around it. Now I could, because I saw the chameleon.
Yeah.
I knew the chameleon that lived in my house, but the version that they experienced and the version that I experienced, not the same version. And
Yeah.
so it was really important for the women that I work with and anyone listening to this, the version of this person in your life is different for other people. That does not discount your experience. That does not make you a crazy person.
Oh, I was just thinking we're on the same page. I was like, I have been asked by people in your situation, am I crazy? And I'm like, you're
No.
not crazy. You're not the crazy one.
You are not crazy. You are not crazy. You're not making it up. It's
Mhm.
not a story in your head. It's not something that you failed at or that you suck at or that you need to be better. That was a story I told myself for a long time. Liz, you just need to be better. You're
Yeah.
just not very good at this thing. Like, you need to pray more. You need to read more. You need to, like, submit more. You need to, like, this is your fault that your marriage is not good. And I carried that around like a bag of rocks forever
Mm,
until I had that awakening moment with someone from my past. And of course, this is not going to be the same for everyone, but in my story, someone from my past came back. It was a divine moment because that person no longer is in my life, who came and said, "This is what you're really like."
yeah.
And I remember that about you. And it was so cool to see how grounded in you were in a high school. Now, I didn't feel grounded in high school, so I was like, what?
Mhm.
I was like, wait, that's what you saw? That's not what I was feeling.
Yeah.
But recognizing, like, wow, I do remember being like all of these things that he's talking about. And I also know that the last 13 years I haven't been any of those things. Wow. This can't happen anymore. This can't continue to be how it is for me. And
Yeah.
maybe you're a woman listening to this and you yourself already know who you were before and you've watched yourself disappear. Um, we should not be allowed to disappear. Like, our
Yeah.
authentic selves is a gift, it is an absolute treasure. You are a treasure, and women in your life need to see the gift and the treasure that you are. And when we work through anxiety and we let anxiety be in charge and we let fear tell us what to do, we're missing out, and so are the people that we love.
Yes. Oh, when I tell you, I've just been full of chills your whole conversation. There's so much goodness coming from this. All right. Well, how will someone know that they need to work with you? Tell us a little bit about that, what that experience is like.
Yeah, so you can know that you're ready for coaching when you've made a decision to show up for yourself. Coaching is this beautiful journey that requires you to do the work.
Mhm.
I have had the absolute honor and privilege of working alongside women and coaching them and facilitating and holding space for them to show up as themselves and try on who they want to be and watch them take actions to become this new authentic version of themselves. They take the actions. I hold the space.
Mhm.
And when I invite women into my programs, they show me that they're ready to take actions. It is not like therapy. This is not therapy. And you and I had a conversation a different day on the difference between
Mhm.
therapy and coaching. If you need to, like, talk through things and just kind of have a brain dump, therapy is a great place to do that. And actually, I've had women come and see me and I've sent them to therapy first.
Mhm.
You need to see a therapist before we can do coaching. That isn't true for everybody, but if you're looking for a brain dump or like talk therapy, then find a really good therapist. Like, find someone
Mhm.
that's going to do that for you. If you're like, I am done being stuck, I am done living in anxiety and fear, I am done not knowing who I am, and I'm ready to peel back layers and do the work, then that's when you're ready for me. That's when you're ready to work with a coach, because that is the space where you're going to find the most impact and the most growth. And I have had, again, the privilege of seeing women peel back their own layers, molting, and just come out on the other side and just be like, I never imagined I could be how I am now. I had one client say, I can't fathom going back to how I was when I met you 6 weeks ago. Like, it is impossible to feel that in my body. At this point, she was able to like feel her sensations and feelings, and she knew I could never do that again. I can't believe I did that all this time.
Yes.
Now we're going retrospect, like, how did I live that way all
Yes.
this time? And so it's so cool to watch that happen, but it only happens when you're ready, which means you get to bring fear and anxiety along for the ride. They don't just disappear. You don't just like, I don't feel anxious today, so I guess I'm just going to do these things. No, you come in with fear and anxiety. You start off coaching and these growth programs with those things sitting beside you, but you learn how to not let them steer your journey.
Oh my gosh. This is, again, I'm just like with you. I feel like you had 100 quotes in our time together today that were so powerful, so good. You guys need to re-listen to this whole episode because, man, it is fire. Oh my gosh. Well, what is one last nugget of wisdom, something you want people to take away from today? What do you want to leave them with?
One thing, Erin.
I know, one thing is so hard.
There's so many. Can it be two things?
Sure. I'll let you have two, I guess.
So two things. One is, and I said this earlier, you are absolutely not the only one experiencing what you're experiencing. Whoever you are, divorced or not divorced, whatever you're feeling or experiencing right now, you are absolutely not the only one having that experience. And it's a really important knowing to acknowledge, like, I'm not alone in my suffering and pain right now. And the second thing is, you absolutely do not have to stay there. You are not condemned. You are not stuck. You are not, going to be left out in the cold. There are people, there are communities, there are resources available to you to be the best version of you. You just have to make the choice to access them.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Again, in conversations I've had, you are speaking directly to the hearts of these women who are feeling that way. Oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. Tell us before we leave, how can people connect with you? Where can they find you? Because they need to. I can feel it.
Oh my gosh, I would love to connect with anyone who wants to hang out. So I'm on Facebook, Elizabeth Soto-Baez, and I also have a private community there for divorced women who are ready to create confidence and freedom and self-love. And so you guys can for sure request to join that group or go find me, send me a DM. I also have a website, launchyourlifecoaching.com, with all my program information, and I have information about me and also stories from clients that have worked with me. I know a lot of people are like, well, what do other people think? It's a great place to go. And then I'm also on Instagram. It's at launch.your.life.coaching. Dots in between all the words, Launch Your Life Coaching, where I post a lot of content and information, lots of tools and support and encouragement. And you can contact me in any of those mediums, Facebook, on my website, or on Instagram, and I would be more than happy to connect with you and chat.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your heart and your story, and just, again, transforming and touching everyone who's listening. I'm so appreciative of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. It's been a pleasure to be here and share my story. And if there's anybody that is changed by even just a little bit of what I've gone through, that would be a beautiful thing.
You are so right. I hope you have an amazing day. We'll talk to you next time. Okay.
Thank you. Take care.
Hey, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. You don't know how much it means to me. If you'd like more behind the scenes content, inspiration, and daily reminders that encourage and uplift you, follow me on Instagram at HeyErinKimbrel and send me a DM to say hey. If any of the episodes have been super helpful for you, please consider leaving me a review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you like to listen. It helps me so incredibly much, and it allows the podcast to be seen by other people who need it. If you want to learn more from me, head to erinkimbrel.com. That's where you'll find all my free resources, read the podcast show notes, and learn more information about my online coaching and breathwork programs that help you create the life you want. If you want to keep the conversation going from today's episode, join us in our exclusive podcast Facebook community, Empowered and Free, Help for High Functioning Anxiety. I'm here for you, and I'm always cheering you on. I'll see you next time. I'm Erin Kimbrell, and this is the Empowered and Free podcast.